Now let's get some legal analysis on this verdict. Joshua Ritter is with us. He's a criminal defense attorney who worked as a prosecutor in the Los Angeles DA's office for nearly a decade. Mr. Ritter, the details of the deaths here are stomach churning. And this is gonna be hard to hear, but I want to describe it for people who didn't know. 7-year-old son, JJ Vallow, he had autism. He died, it was revealed, with tape over his mouth, a plastic bag over his head, scratch marks on his neck. He was trying to get out of that bag. He was trying to live, and then he was buried in the yard. Why was the death penalty taken off the table?
Yeah, I mean, you hear those details, and you do feel it in your gut, and you can understand why the jurors returned the verdict that they did. But the death penalty was taken off the table for reasons unrelated, really, to the crime itself. If you believe in the death penalty and you believe that we should have capital punishment in this country, then this is exactly the kind of case that it is deserving of it. But the judge in this case made a decision based upon her mental health. She had been declared incompetent. There was a doubt declared by her attorneys a couple of times before trial started. And I think the judge just felt that that would create too many appellate issues. If she was given the death penalty, convicted and given the death penalty, she'd get an automatic appeal. That could drag this case on forever. And especially given the already kind of mental issues she was dealing with, I think the judge just thought it would be cleaner and easier to get this case going now. Also, it would create less delay. So that's why we're having her trial before we're having Chad Daybell's trial. So it was all those other considerations outside of the crime itself.
I see, to get some resolution here. Speaking of closure, is it clear who killed the children? Because Chad Daybell, he's going to be going on trial. Do we know who did this?
No, I think that's a big question, and that's part of the reason why prosecutors charged conspiracy in this case, because they don't have to prove exactly who was the exact person who took the children's lives if they're all involved in a conspiracy. Now, what's interesting is the jury also did find her responsible for their murders directly, believing that somehow there was evidence to point towards her direct involvement in the murders, not just in the planning or in the agreement ahead of time. And this is probably the same evidence we're going to see in Chad Daybell's case. And so far, we haven't really seen anything that can lead us to point to one exact person, whether that be Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow, or even her brother, Alex Cox, having some sort of involvement. The only piece of forensic evidence that connected her to the actual murder was that hair found on some duct tape on poor JJ's body. And even then, you can't say that she actually took his life.
Mr. Ritter, in the end, what have we learned? Because, I've read about this case a lot. She was a woman known for, she could be very likable, but she lied a lot. I mean, she had a room in her house that was full of mirrors just so she could watch herself dance. Then she thought she was this special woman, that she and her husband were married and they were almost prophetic in some ways. Was Lori Daybell an unstable woman sucked into a religious cult? Was she a selfish mastermind who sacrificed her kids? Like, in the end, who was she?
I think she's a little bit of all those things. I think to some extent she was, brought in, sucked in by Chad Daybell to these fringe religious beliefs. But at the same time, she has shown such callousness and such really disgusting, disturbing behavior to have been involved in the deaths of your own children, and within weeks, you're getting remarried and sunbathing on the beach in Hawaii. It's just disturbing beyond anything that we can really wrap our heads around. So I don't know who she is. I do know that a jury has decided that she's a murderer, amongst other things, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. How right does this look for appeal to you as a former prosecutor?
So I was asked that question earlier today as well, and I'm having a hard time trying to really point to one thing in particular that the judge may have done that they're certainly going to attack on appeal. Now, they're for sure going to appeal this. In any case of this magnitude, there's going to be an appeal, but I cannot point to one decision, and that's really what boils down to, is what decision did a judge make that may have been an error? The only thing I can think of as I'm sitting here is the question that you asked earlier about what points to her direct involvement in the actual taking of the children's lives. And if they feel that somehow caught up in that is some sort of appellate issue, perhaps that would be something they would point towards in their arguments.
Okay, very helpful analysis here tonight. Joshua Ritter, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, thank you.